Thank you, Rich. Yeah, the breaking everything is easy, and also, if you prepare correctly, it's actually pretty easy to get through it without having the breakage that you've all heard about. That's why you're all here. You guys have all heard about how bad it is, right? Yeah, it won't be that bad for you. So my name is Gregg Woodcock. I am an inaugural Splunk trustee. I'm number 3 on answers. If you recognize that Woodcock name in your Splunk, that's probably where you saw me. By the time this recording goes out, I should be number 2. I should have crossed over 75K, but we'll see what happens. I've been doing Splunk for about 11 years. The company I work for was like customer number 1,000 roughly for Splunk. And it was so great, I knew I was going to get out and do my own thing with it. And now we run Splunkster. It's a Splunk-focused consulting company. It's a boutique operation. We help everybody with Splunk, big and large. And we like to help. We do a lot of free consultation, make sure that we're a good fit or whatever. But you can give us a call. And my son here, Noah, he works with me.
My name is Noah Woodcock, and you can see that as of when we made the slides, I was pretty far down there, and I think I might have moved up 5 or 6 since then. So I'm on my way to catching Gregg in my career at some point. I've been working with Splunk for about 3-4 years, and really gotten a good grip on it this year, and been on some good projects, and excited to be here with y'all today, and hopefully save you all a major headache. And I'm sure this is the end of the second day, so I'm sure everyone has seen this forward-looking statement. If we do speak on anything forward-looking, we're not official Splunk, we're not experts, so disregard that and take it with a grain of salt. So thank you for being here, and we hope you learned something.
So Noah's going to disappear right now. We're hoping to do a live demo at the end with one of our audience, or maybe more. Hold on, drop my mic.
We're going to do a demo here, and we had a volunteer that volunteered before the show, so we're going to most likely get to see the app on his instance, so you can get an idea for what it will look like when you go back to work and install it, and maybe it'll make you know that you're not the only one that has a bunch of stuff that needs to be fixed.
All right, we'll see you at the end, Noah. So the app, this is an app. It's a walkthrough for an app. The app's a free app. It's on Splunk base. It's basically one giant dashboard. The app does not do the upgrade. The app does not modify anything in your environment. The app is perfectly safe for everybody all the time. You don't need to worry about it, but don't take my word for it. Any app that you download from Splunk base, look at the props.conf and the inputs.conf. But mine doesn't have either one of those. But anyway, so the way it works is I'm going to walk through what breaks first, and then at the end, I'm going to walk through with the demo. Noah's going to walk through the actual app. So there's the link for the Splunk app. You don't need to worry about it. This is all being recorded. You can get the slides later, so don't bother taking pictures or anything like that. So there are basically 2 major breakpoints for the Windows TA. There was a change in there were several breaking changes in 5, and then there were several more breaking changes in 6. So what I did, and what a whole bunch of people did, is they heard about this, and they've been sitting on version 4 something, just waiting for something like this to happen. And now it's more important than ever, because you know what happened a couple days ago, yesterday or the day before, 8.0 dropped. And with the new Splunk support licensing model, they only support one version, the current version and the previous version. So if you're on 6, you're technically out of support. And if to upgrade to 7, the 7 release to be technically in support requires you to upgrade the Windows TA. So there's no longer any opportunity for you to put this off. If you're going to be strictly within supportability, you're going to have to upgrade. So the timing on this is absolutely perfect. So one of the main things they did between the old version in 4 and the version in 5 is they actually changed some of the source types. So the 3 on the top are the same, and the 3 on the bottom are different. So it used to be if you turned on the XML, it would have the same source type. It would just be XML. Now if you turn on XML, it actually changes the source type. So that's a very important change. Even or I'm sorry, that was the source. That was changes to source. Sorry. They also made changes to source type. So all of the source types changed. And this is the one that kills everybody. Because if you are used to searching Windows logs, you do source type equals win event log : star, or source type equals win event log : system, or whatever. And you know exactly where your stuff is, right? It's in the source type, and that's what your fingers are like hard coded. That's going to be the hardest part, actually. It's retraining your fingers. So you can't use those anymore because they don't exist. The problem is, it's not just your fingers. These exist in macros, event types, save searches, alerts. This reference to this source type is everywhere throughout your environment. That's what the TA is going to help you find. So from version 4 to version 5, they decided that all of these are going to have the same source type. And all of these are going to have the same source type. So in order to discriminate between the different types, you're going to have to use something else. And this is a little small, but what they did is, in all of the versions of the TA, they have this event type called win event log Windows, win event log system, and win event log security, and win event log application. So this is kind of everything. This is system, this is security, and this is app. The problem is, if you switch to using this event type, what's on your forwarders might be different than what's on your search head, might be different than what's on your indexers, and they might have a different definition of that event type, right? So the safest thing to do in the upgrade procedure in the middle is don't reference the event type because you're not sure what value it is, where, and in what version you're using. Reference this fully forwards and backwards compatible search syntax. So instead of referencing it by source type to distinguish between the source types, which you used to use source type before, you use source. So if this is the sort of the master table for the entire upgrade plan. There are a few other nuances, but the majority of the app and what you're going to need to do is on this slide right here. So if you're using this type of a search, you're going to swap these lines out for these. If you're using this, it's these. You're using this, it's these. It's using this, it's these. And at the very, very end, after everything is upgraded and on the same version of the TA, you can switch to using this event type, which should then be fully supported moving forwards. And if they ever have any other breaking changes, if you're using the event type, shouldn't break. But in the duration, while you're planning for the upgrade, go back and use this middle definition everywhere because it's forwards and backwards compatible and doesn't depend on the event type definition, which is changing throughout this entire upgrade process. So this is the key slide. Now, there are several other things that happen in the TA. Most of these I agree with. Some of them I kind of wonder what they think. I agree with this one. If you install Microsoft AD, you're also going to be installing TA Windows, and you're also going to be installing the DNS one. Like almost certainly you're installing all three of these together the majority of the time. So what Splunk said is, everybody's installing these together all the time, so why are there three different TAs? Why not roll them all into one TA? I think that's actually a pretty good idea. If you don't need the stuff, the knowledge objects for sources and source types you're not using, they don't slow anything down. They just don't do anything, right? So I like this change. But what this means is, if you upgrade the Windows TA and then you have your the other TA still there, now you have incompatible definitions, right? You have all of that stuff, the old version on your AD app, and the new version of all those knowledge objects embedded in the new version of the Windows TA, and God only knows what's going to happen when you roll that out and what's going to take precedence and be broken. It's a big fat mess. So one of the things that's highlighted in the app is it'll tell you what version of these apps you have and what pieces of those versions you need to move and merge into a separate app. And so here's another point. The way we did this, and we've done this successfully with several clients. I'm sorry, camera, I'm looking at my audience, so I should probably be looking at you some. But anyway, that's why I'm looking over here. I'm not lazy eye or anything. Like, you're important, but these guys are really important. Anyway, so what we're suggesting that you do is create your own app that's going to contain all the stuff that breaks, and keep that in that app. Because normally what people do is they'll create a local folder, and they'll put all their local definitions in there, right, that's custom for you, and Splunk publishes it in default, and you put your custom definitions in local in that app. Well, because now we're dealing with three different apps and stuff moving around to different places and different versions, my suggestion is for this app, for these three apps, you create a separate upgrade app. Call it My Company TA Windows. You know, Splunkster TA Windows. and you move everything over there and you rip it out of all the other stuff, and then moving forward, it's all there, and then you can upgrade these things and delete them, and you know that the stuff that you need is safe in this other app, and that it's not conflicting with anything else. So I'm going to go through every single breaking change, and I'm going to tell you what's going to happen if you mess it up. In the Windows TA, it used to define indexes.conf. Now, when Splunk Cloud came around, they decided we will not cloud vet any app that has an indexes.conf in it that defines an index or does almost anything, right? If you have basically an indexes.conf, it's not good for cloud. So they said, we can't be hypocrites, and this was stupid anyway, and we never should have done it. We're going to delete the indexes.conf. Well, you know what happens if you didn't notice that and you upgrade? You don't have an index for your data to go into, right? The old data's not gone, but the new data's not going anywhere, and you're probably not going to be able to easily get it synced up and back in. So if you don't accommodate this change, and you're relying on the index definitions that were in default in the TA, they're not there anymore. They're gone. Your data will not go anywhere. It'll get dropped unless you have a last chance index defined, and then it will end up there. But then merging it's doable. If that happened to you, shame on you. You should have done it right. But if it did, call me. I can show you how to merge it back. But if it got sent in and it got dropped because you don't have a last chance index, it's much harder to square that all away without getting duplicates in there. So what you're going to have to do is make sure that where your Windows events are going, that index definition is inside your Splunkster all indexes base app. You guys are using base config apps, right? Hopefully? Okay, so it shouldn't be there anyway. But it is there by default, and if you're relying on it, just copy what's in there out of the default indexes.conf, put it into your app, or if you don't have a Splunkster all indexes app, put it in the Splunkster TA Windows app in local or default, doesn't really matter, and so that it's safe, so that when it disappears when you upgrade, it's not referring to that. You just have another copy here and it'll still work. So that's a huge one. If you are using Roll Windows Admin, which probably most of you aren't, but maybe 10, 20% of you are, that is, again, it shouldn't have been there. Didn't really need it, but people are using it. So if you are using that, that is stripped out. So that won't be there anymore. And if you have things tied to that role, the role won't exist, so those things won't be usable. So if you are using Roll Windows Admin, you need to, again, copy that out of the Windows TA default directory. Just copy it wholesale into your Splunkster TA Windows app, and then you're safe for the upgrade. When it disappears, you'll still have it. Now, here's probably the worst one. Most people get that, hey, I'm not going to rely on his index definitions because I need them in my master all indexes app, and they've gotten that part right. But what a lot of people didn't get right is they relied on the index equals Windows or the index equals perfmon definitions for the sources when you instantiate them. And those also disappeared. So this one's really bad because now the forwarder doesn't work, right? Because you don't have an index equals something defined. Now, if you there's another setting where there's a default, but if you are sending stuff to index equals OS or index equals Windows or index equals perfmon, or I don't know, they're all listed in here. Those come from the default setting that is no longer there. So you need to either just decide on another index name and change. You could just shut down your indexers, change the name. The only thing that causes an index to have a name is the folder structure. So if you want to change the name and you want to say, hey, we never should have done that anyway, and I sure wish that the perfmon index was named something else, now's your chance to do it. Shut down your indexer, change the folder name, change the index definition from perfmon to whatever it is. Go into your inputs.conf, which you've now moved over to your Splunkster TA Windows, and add index equals whatever. Because the default value for index equals whatever for all of these forwarding sources doesn't exist anymore once you upgrade. So you're going to have to make sure that you define it explicitly. The default props.conf has a couple of built-in field extractions for NT syslog snare, monitor aware, and enterprise security 202. If you go into it, look at those definitions. If you think you're using them, or even if you're not sure, just copy them over because they've been stripped out. So it really harms nothing to copy them over. If you're not sure, just copy that stuff out of the props.conf into your Splunk TA Windows app. Then it's safe, because when it disappears, you still got your copy of it. All right, now here are the kind of debatable changes. This is where Splunk thinks they know better than you do. Might be true, might not be true. I don't know. So in the original versions of the TA, this feature was always there. If you type render XML equals true and put that in your inputs.conf, then Splunk would use the Windows feature to render the XML. It's not a Splunk thing. Splunk passes it to Windows, and then Windows passes the XML back, and Splunk forwards that in. So if you are using the render XML feature, and there are some bugs in it, that does some things that are wrong sometimes, that's Windows' problem, so don't blame Splunk for that. But anyway, what Splunk decided is, hey, we think the XML stuff is better. We think everybody should be using the XML version of the logs, so we're actually going to change the default. We're changing it from false to true. So if you're not paying attention to this and you upgrade and you get everything else right, all of a sudden your events look absolutely nothing like they did before. Your security analysts are going to freak out. All your content's going to work because they have the same field names, but your analysts are going to be exceedingly upset with you. So you should have a demo of what the XML looks like, have an open conversation, maybe have a vote, just make a decision. Don't let Splunk decide for you, because they decided that old stuff stinks and you ought to be using this. I don't really care. My clients all stuck with the old version because they just didn't want to change. But this one will really, people will freak out. You won't lose data, and you can switch it back, but you can't get that data converted. So you'll have this big chunk of data that's ugly. Similarly, Splunk decided, you know what, this perfmon stuff, it actually would be much better as one giant event with the stuff that's associated. So instead of individual dimensions being their own event, all the stuff that's from the same thing, all the dimensions are in one multi-KV event. Actually, I think this is probably the right way to go. It makes a lot of sense to me. But if you don't like that, they changed this on you. Like, they switched the default. So your perfmon is going to look different. In my opinion, this is definitely a better way to do it. But my point is, you guys decide, right? Don't let them decide for you. You decide, do I want it multi-KV or I want it split dimensions, separate event? If you don't fix this and think about it, you might be disappointed on the other side. All right. Now there's some good news. I've been talking about all this work you guys got to do. Splunk got on board and said, we agree there's a ton of bloat in Windows events. There's a bunch of stuff that's just stupid. Like, this Windows event means that you need blah, blah, right? Like that's just free money for Splunk. Why would we send free money to Splunk? Unless it's somebody else's money. So Splunk finally said, yeah, we're right. The jig is up. We're going to help you get that junk out of there. But we're not going to put it in. We're going to comment it out. But you know what? It's there. But you have to go in and comment it, uncomment it, so it starts stripping all that bloat out so you can save money. So the good news in this is, if you weren't trimming that bloat before, or weren't sure how to do it, or weren't doing all of it, all you got to do is go in there and uncomment. There's a bunch of sed commands in there, in the props, and we actually don't uncomment them. I've been saying, let's take our stuff into our custom TA so that we know if it shifts around and it's there and then not there or whatever. Like, just copy those sed command lines out into your Splunk TA Windows app, uncomment them, and make sure it gets to your indexer, because that's where that stuff happens. And all of that bloat's going to go away. So the good news is, the XML stuff, the XML events are a little bit larger than the standard ones. But once you trim out all the bloat, if you enable it, whether you're using render XML or not, the size is roughly the same. Some people say in their environments, depending on what they blacklisted and whitelisted, I've heard people say that the XML is actually a little bit smaller, but it's single-digit %. It's not worth worrying about. So just decide, you like XML or not. Don't worry about the size of it, because with these trimming functions that you turn on, size is going to be roughly the same thing. Okay, yeah, this is a good point. So there are certain, if you're using Splunk Enterprise Security, Splunk's SIEM, which a lot of people are. Let me see, how many of you guys are using ES? Okay, so almost all of you guys are using ES. If you're using ES, all of these TAs, these 3 TAs we're talking about, the DNS and the AD and the Microsoft Windows, they're actually controlled by the version of ES that you use. They're bundled into it. So you may not have a choice what version of these TAs you're going to use or when you get upgraded to it, because it might be somewhat out of your hands. So what you need to realize is, for example, we stay one major version behind on just about everything. So we're using Splunk ES 2 something, I don't remember. But the version of the app that's bundled, oh, here it is, says right here. ES 522 is what we're using. And so it's hard-coded to use its own bundled with it Splunk TA 501. So one of the things that could have happened to you is if you were scared to upgrade your Windows app, it also meant you couldn't upgrade your ES. So your ES might be way behind. So this is great news for you because you can build this separate app that's forwards and backwards compatible. And you can just go through these upgrades and nothing's going to break. So just be aware, if you're using ES, you can't just upgrade to 6. Don't do that because it's built into the ES and you'll break ES. If you upgrade to 6, I don't know how tightly it's coupled, right? But they bundled it for a reason. So if you're using ES 522 and you say, hey, I can upgrade to 6, boom, 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 you might very well break something. So if you're using ES, go look at what version of the TA it has, or even then, just don't even worry about it. Just make sure you upgrade ES and not the Windows TA on the search head. You can upload it on your forwarders and other stuff once you make these preparatory changes, because all the preparatory changes the app are going to suggest are forwards and backwards compatible. So that's the point. Make these changes now, even if you're not going to upgrade for a year. Make these changes now, and then you can just upgrade whenever you feel like, and nothing's going to break. Oh, hit the wrong button. Okay, this is a free app. It's intended to be the easy button. Oh, that's another good point. See, I'm talking to myself here. If ES has gobs of content, and one of the newbie mistakes people make is they get ES and they turn everything on, right? They turn it all on, and some of it's real time, and like none of it works because it all needs to be tuned. So this app only looks for live searches that are enabled. So don't think that just because this was good now, and you've upgraded and everything in the app showed green and good and no problems. If you turn on new content, I would keep this app installed on your search head, or at least on your deployment server or somewhere else. Not deployment server, monitoring console. If you turn on new content, I would go back and peek in this app and see if that new content is broken by using the old thing. Because believe it or not, I've found several of Splunk produced TAs and apps that use the incompatible old syntax. Even though it's the current version, even though it's 2 years since these breaking fixes went out, they have current apps that are broken, because every time I'm telling you guys too, if this shows up that a Splunk app is broken, go ahead and fix, copy their thing and put it in local in our app and fix it. But either tell me or tell Splunk so they can fix it, because it's just wrong. But there are several apps we found that are current apps, that they have the old syntax and it's been broken for 2 years and nobody knew, right? So it must not be very important. But so it does. This app does not search for knowledge objects where disabled equals true. That's the key point. It searches for the stuff that's enabled and active, and it will tell you what needs to change. So might be worth revisiting it every now and then. So do we have a live demo, or are we going to do my demo?
We have it.
We have it. Do we have HDMI?
We do.
Okay.
It's actually a pretty, it looks like his job is going to be pretty easy to upgrade.
Okay. All right, so here's our live demo. We're switching over to and can I give a shout out to you? Is that going to get you in trouble? Okay, so we have a very nice young lady who's helping us out here with a live demo. So what do we have going on here, Noah?
So this is what the app is going to look like. This is when you hit launch app, this is what it's going to open up to. You can see this first panel here is speaking to the core Splunk TA apps. And right there in the what to do column, you can walk through the steps and easily get that ready to go. And he only has one core app that he's going to need to touch in order to be ready to upgrade. And the title, it's Splunk TA Windows. so you know exactly where to go when you go to edit the props and the inputs and everything. The app is honestly really self-explanatory. It takes all the guesswork out of what you're going to need to do.
If he had the DNS app or the AD app in here, which he doesn't, or she doesn't, it would have showed up here and it would have told you what breaks in that and what you need to do.
And the second panel is basically the same thing you saw in that slide earlier, but you might not have the slides in front of you. So when you install the app, you can always use this as a reference point to know where you're going to need to make your changes in your old searches and your alerts and in the future as you move forward.
Right, so this is static content. This does not ever change. This is the only panel that should have stuff in it when you're done, and it always has stuff in it. This is for reference.
In the middle column there is what's going to be backwards and forwards compatible. So until after you upgrade, you're going to want to start using the middle column there that encompasses the old and the new formatting. And it doesn't look like anybody in this environment is running any incompatible searches. This will help you know who to talk to, because not everybody obviously is here. So you go back to your company, you get it installed, and Joe keeps running searches that are incompatible. So you're going to want to talk to Joe, bring him in, and say, hey, you need to look at this app. Look at this right here, and you're using a bunch of searches that have win event log system. So from now on, you're going to need to use, then you should switch to this.
This is another reason you might consider keeping the app around for some time, because you can keep checking to see if people are doing what you told them to do, because I don't know, but people I work with, they never do what I tell them to do.
Some people think, it's just a best practice, like it doesn't really matter, but it's not going to work for them anymore. Like it will be a problem.
And there's a time picker up at the top, so if you need to go for a farther window to make sure that nobody's doing this, you can change that. That's the only panel that's affected by the time picker.
And they don't have any incompatible saved searches. So you can see here event times, macros, and saved searches. So it will search all of your objects to make sure that there's nothing you need to go back and edit. That panel up there, references a lot of the real-time stuff, but this references maybe it only runs once a week or whatever. This will be important to look at to make sure that that will function properly when you upgrade, and you'll be able to. It'll show the name right there, and you'll be able to go in and edit it and easily get that up to speed. He does have an incompatible dashboard view, and this is similar to what these will look like. So you'll have what server it's on, what app it's in, the label and the title, and then the incompatible. Well, it's kind of cut off there.
Can you do two fingers? Does it scroll?
No. Wait, yes.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
there you go. You'll be able to see the query and what is incompatible, so it will easily break it down to what you need to go fix. Okay. And there are several dashboards here, and this is exactly what it'll look like on your server. You'll just be able to scroll through and just like a checklist.
If you look right here, you can see right there in the SPL, source type equals win event log security, right? And it does case sensitivity doesn't matter. It'll still find it.
And so then there'll be some, I don't know how often it'll be that a pre-built dashboard panel will have an issue, but it is possible, especially if you're using maybe a vendor's application or something, that they haven't fixed this. Any of the Splunk dashboards should be fixed, but you could be using a third-party application or something off of Splunk base that might have the issue that you'll need to go edit. So if you work your way through this, you should be able to upgrade without any major pitfalls.
So again, all these bottom panels below the time chart for the user behavior activity, those should all be clear. And they're looking at the current state of enabled knowledge objects. That's not historical. The only thing the time picker does is the user activity. So if those bottom panels are clear, you're good to go as far as your content. Your users might still need to be whacked with a clue by for a while till they get, but they're not going to get their search results. So honestly, there's self-serving pain. They should come around after the upgrade, but start training them before the upgrade. make sure that before the upgrade, you've trained your guys so that whole sheet is blank. Then you are golden. And if by chance, so we've run this through a bunch of customer upgrades, and we missed a couple of tiny things here and there. If by chance you run this and you say, hey, you missed one, be sure to let us know. But I really do think that we caught them all here. So thank you all for your time. Let us know if you find something wrong. And thank you, young lady, for your demo. We'll fuzz out those servers before we publish this. Thanks, everybody.